final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Like I told our players the other day, there's a line of people that don't think I'm any good and don't like me. The good thing for me is that I don't have a line. I have an army of people that believe in me. So I worry about the army of people that believe in me, not the line of people that don't think I'm any good at what I do. That's part of the deal.
To see some of the guys on our team that have worked this hard for several years to have that kind of success is, that's what I enjoy the most, is watching those guys do well and have success. So that's been fun.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a big Thursday night in the Palmetto State and also up here in the Tar Heel State. Phil Kornblut at PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, site of tonight's ACC basketball matchup between 19th-ranked Clemson and North Carolina State. NC State, a team which has already defeated two teams ranked number 2 in the country, and Clemson looking for a 4th straight win over the Wolfpack. Should be a heck of a game, not tipping off until 9 o'clock tonight here at PNC Arena. Meantime, back in good old South Carolina, a lot of stuff happening. Frank Martin met with the media late this afternoon to talk about the acquisition of Brian Bowen, and Marcus Lattimore is now returning to USC as a member of the inner workings staff for Will Muschamp, not somebody who'll be on the field doing any actual coaching, but more in terms of player identification and player development. So we've got a lot to talk about. Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, back at the studios in Columbia. And Will, you were over with Frank Martin a little while ago just outside of his office. He did a long press conference with the media. So you wanted your chance to fire away some good questions at him. Did you get it done?
I did. Some of the people, obviously, amongst the assembled media, got to some of the questions I had before I did, but I had my opportunity to ask some of the questions I have. Am I satisfied? I'll be satisfied when I see him on the floor, and that's kind of the situation and position that Frank Martin has himself in. He said he wouldn't take the risk of bringing this guy in with the attention that he obviously will bring about. He wouldn't have brought him in if he didn't think that there was going to be at least an air of good compliance on his side and a good compliance from USC's side. And he wouldn't have brought him in if he didn't think that he could be on the floor. So he assured the media of both those things. I don't know if we can ever be completely assured of those things because he detailed a process that still has to take place with the NCAA in terms of reinstatement. There's no guarantee the NCAA is going to actually let him play. So from that perspective, I think we're still at least a little bit away for us being completely satisfied that this thing will not bring about something negative, but he's going to practice with the team. He can't travel. He's on scholarship. And at least from this standpoint, South Carolina has at least put all of its ducks in a row that it can at this point.
And I think probably, I was about to say, Phil, this is, in my mind, the way South Carolina's basketball program has been over the last 30 years, I think just in my mind, it's a no-lose situation. You got to take some gambles right now to shake up this basketball program to get people to know that Frank Martin is serious about building something here. And if you have to take a detour, maybe like a Jerry Tarkanian has done in his career, why not do it?
Well, I mean, how often do you have a chance to get a top player like this kid fall into your lap? Chuck Martin, the assistant on the Gamecock staff, had been recruiting the kid when he was at Indiana, so he had a previous relationship that certainly helped the Gamecocks in this case. And one thing I don't know or understand, maybe somebody can explain it to me, is the FBI has closed its case on the kid. FBI has not incriminated him in any form or fashion. So we have precedent in this sort of situation as well, as we talked about last night with the Cam Newton situation. Why would the NCAA hesitate in giving the kid back his eligibility? Why would there be anything that would hold that up?
I think that part of the reason is we don't have and we were mentioning that last night, Corn, the fact that while we do have the Cam Newton situation to go off of, the NCAA changed its rulings on basically the way that they adjudicate those cases after Cam Newton was done at Auburn. So at least in that perspective, we really haven't seen a situation of this nature come about since that rule change has taken place. So Frank Martin has conceded that it looks like there will be some sort of penalty that will befall Bowen from either his father or people close to him receiving money. That's something that they didn't necessarily say wasn't true. Now, the only thing that we have said, and one thing that he at least conference today, was that they were assured by the people that they've talked to that this kid was in the clear. At least him personally is in the clear and had no knowledge of the payments taking place before he enrolled at Louisville. That all being said, it still does not take him off of the responsibility aspect from the NCAA's perspective. He's still not eligible to play.
Well, Cohen, I'd like to hear from some callers tonight on if they're in the boat I'm in. After that ruling that North Carolina got, I don't know what the NCAA will do.
Well, this is true.
I mean, if you go all over academic fraud and don't do anything about that, I mean.
Well, because the argument was that was North Carolina apparently successfully argued that the NCAA had no jurisdiction over that. So, and apparently they convinced the right people so that they didn't get hammered like most people thought they would have. The phone line is open, 800-956-7266. As we talk about this, we talk about Clemson, NC State tonight up here at PNC Arena, 800-956-7266. Our email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. And by the way, should you lose us tonight for one reason or the other and you want to stay with us, you can, of course, go to our YouTube channel, Sports Talk SC on YouTube, and follow us there, or check out one of our stations that streams on the TuneIn app or the iHeartRadio app. We suggest our Columbia station because they do not preempt us. You can always find us there. The Point Radio on the TuneIn app, always a good place to go to get us in those situations where you might lose us, but you want to find us. We're always findable. The other story of interest here in the state, I mean, you know, I don't trumpet this with the same fanfare that a lot of the fanboy websites have today when it comes to Marcus Lattimore going to work for Will Muschamp in the office there at USC. I mean, you know, it's being treated as if the coming home of a war hero or whatever the case may be. I mean, I know Marcus Lattimore is a beloved figure in the history of Gamecock football and well-deserved and all that, but you know, he's not going to be coaching on the field. He's going to be working in a behind-the-scenes player personnel position. I guess he can help certainly in identifying talents. I don't think he can do anything from a recruiting standpoint to really help you, except when you have a guy on campus and say, hey, you want to meet Marcus Lattimore and let him talk to you, that kind of stuff. But in terms of hands-on X's and O's from that standpoint, no, you're not going to get that out of Marcus Lattimore.
It's a thing to keep him in the family. That's at least something that's positive. But I think the other positive is that you keep him in your program and he doesn't go be a coach anywhere else. And I think that this is something, according to what I've read and who I've talked to, this was something that basically they had been trying to do because he is so very involved with the foundation and wanting to help young people, especially those who were disadvantaged. He wanted an ability to be able to do that and also be a part of the Gamecock program. They were able to go through some of the compliance hurdles to make that happen. But as far as actually being a coach, I don't know if that necessarily was going to happen anywhere. But the fact is, you keep him in your program, that's a good thing. But I would say that the impact that his hire has, at least from a wins and losses standpoint, I would say minimal.
Well, you know, but from a mental standpoint, I think it's tremendous because he's a guy that when he hit the field, he was a warrior, but it was a controlled rage. A lot of guys can't deal with that. One of the reasons Alabama is so good is their guys play with control rage and they think when they play. Lattimore is that type of player. He can explain that to players how to deal with that on the field.
All right, phone number 800-956-7266. Lines are open for you right now. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Wednesday night from Raleigh and from Columbia. We have united the capital cities of the two Carolinas here on Sports Talk tonight. PNC Arena is a beautiful arena. Would love to see a hockey game here. In fact, I heard on the local news here in Raleigh today that the Hurricanes were just bought by a guy from Dallas as the majority owner. The plan is to keep the team here in Raleigh. But it is a beautiful arena here where the Wolfpack play. It's right next door, if you're not familiar with it. It's right next door, right across the street from the football stadium, Carter Finley Stadium, on the outskirts of Raleigh.
I love how you say
beautiful building.
I love how you say you would watch a hockey game up there, yet you wouldn't go with me to a hockey game in Charleston this weekend. What gives, Corn?
Well, first of all, I'm not wasting my weekends with you. And secondly, big difference between the NHL and minor league hockey. Wouldn't you agree with that, you being an old hockey buff?
I would say that hockey is hockey, and especially because of the fact that minor league hockey, if you spend just a little bit more, you can get very close, and hockey up close is pretty awesome, I think.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. We'll hear from Frank Martin in just a moment. One other note related to tonight's basketball game here, and this came out this afternoon, that NC State guard Markel Johnson, a sophomore, had all charges against him dismissed by the state of Ohio. He's missed the last 6 games while this was being settled. Felony assault charges. Initially suspended indefinitely on December 16th. So no word yet on if he'll be in uniform tonight. He had started the 10 previous games prior to this, averaging about 9 points and 7 assists per game. So that would certainly be a boost for NC State if obviously he is able to play now, but if they're able to get him in uniform tonight. Also, Joe Lunardi, his latest bracketology this morning, he moved Clemson up to a 4 seed, playing in the West against Murray State in Boise. He has Furman as a 13 seed, playing Kentucky in San Diego. Just something to talk about here as we run through these weeks heading towards the tournament time.
And, of course, Wofford down your alma mater last night.
Sure.
63-62.
Charlotte Observer says that they expect him to play tonight, Corn.
They do expect him to play tonight.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's go to Frank Martin. Will, you were over there a little while ago with the Gamecock basketball coach as they called a special press conference about this Brian Bowen situation. I know you guys talked about a couple of other things, but it's the Bowen deal that's on everybody's mind.
It is, and of course, the biggest question is when we will see him. Frank Martin says it's up to the NCAA and working with USC's compliance department.
Compliance is in charge of all that. I mean, I've read that whole case, every page, every paragraph, every sentence, so I know what the case says. But I believe I'm not very good with English. You know, I'm good with some words you guys don't like. But basically, the way it's been expressed to me is that the young man has been cleared by the FBI. I don't know if that's the right English or not, but I trust in the people I just mentioned, Chance Miller in compliance, Ray, Dr. Pastides. If we thought in any way that young man was still being investigated by the FBI, we probably don't do this.
Or what were your initial, I guess, was there a concern going in, and what I guess subsided those concerns?
Yeah, the concerns was to make sure that the legal part of it was not, the kid was not in the middle of legalities. We felt that he's not, and based on what the FBI put out, that's what everyone understands. So because once the legal part's out of the way, then it becomes an NCAA matter. NCAA matter, we don't rule on it, but we can manage and figure out internally here. We felt that the legal part of it is to the side. and we didn't feel that way, we would not have moved.
Right? Can he practice with you guys right away?
Yeah. He didn't practice today. He's been running around. All of you that are Gamecocks, getting his Carolina card and all that other stuff, and getting himself situated. So putting a schedule together, the whole thing, all the stuff that every first semester guy goes through. But he'll probably be on the court tomorrow.
Is he excited about this?
Yeah, man. It's an unbelievable kid that obviously, listen, we all got a chapter in our life that we're not comfortable with. And the best part about life is when you can go on to the next chapter and start enjoying life again. All he wants to do is be a college kid. He just wants to be a college kid. He wants to enjoy, wants to be a teammate. It's all he's ever done. And I'm excited for him. When we had the conversation that we had admitted him and that, our leadership was going to stand up and fight for reinstatement, that kid almost started crying. It's a wonderful family. The young man is just incredible, and I'm happy for him. When you see joy in an 18-year-old's face, as a person that cares about people, it makes you feel good.
What's the timetable on that application for reinstatement? Is there a hearing, or have you been given any assurances on that?
We're in no rush. It's not like we have to reinstate him to clear him by, February 1st. There's no rush, man. He just wants to be part of a team. He wants to be in college. He wants people that are going to believe in him and fight for him. We signed up for that. And Chance Miller and the leadership of our university they'll take those steps. And, he just got on campus. So it's not like there's been in-depth conversations with our leadership about what you're asking about the whole reinstatement. What we know, we wouldn't have signed up for it if we didn't think he was going to eventually go back on the court. But in the meantime, we're giving the kid an opportunity to move on with his life and grow and just, enjoy life, man. At that age, the last whatever months it's been, 3-4 months, that I'm sure that hasn't been fun for him. Yeah, the concerns was to make sure that the league.
Martin from earlier today, Corn, and I did want to at least mention that with the situation involving Markel Johnson, I misread that. He actually is traveling right now, so he is eligible to rejoin the team, but he is not in Raleigh at this point, so he will not make it for tonight's contest, but he will return and rejoin the team, at least upcoming here in the next couple days.
All right, very good, and we'll be back with more in a moment.
We're still on. We still had a minute, Corn. We got 2 calls though.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry. I thought I heard the bumper music for the bottom of the hour.
You did, but it was playing inadvertently.
It was a premature firing of the bumper. Okay. With that being the case, let's go to Willie in Greenville. Willie, good evening and welcome into Sports Talk.
I don't keep up with basketball recruiting that well. Is that Zion Williamson guy? I get the impression from up here to upstate. Is he pretty much a Clemson lead?
I mean, it all depends on what you want to believe and who you want to believe. He hasn't said anything publicly. There are people who are saying that he's going to Clemson. They don't cite any words from him or from his stepfather or anybody else. I mean, I guess you can get hearsay through the grapevine, so to speak. So now there's some people around South Carolina who believe by getting this Bowen kid that's going to swing Williamson their way because the two, I guess, are friends and maybe they want to play together, trying to pull that sort of thing out of the woods here, so to speak. So, but that it seems to be in basketball recruiting circles here of late that Clemson is the most likely landing spot for him on the 20th.
You can count the amount of people who actually know what's going to happen with that on one hand right now, and we are not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, the kid hasn't talked to the media about recruiting in months. The only information you can get from him is when he puts out one of his diaries in USA Today. So it's all just guesswork at this point. But the best guess seems to be Clemson. yesterday. I don't know how he's doing it, where he's doing it, when he's doing it. I guess we'll find that out at some point in time. Of course, he took the official visits and he took unofficial visits to USC and Clemson. And the feeling has been in recruiting circles, like I was saying a moment ago, for whatever reason, that Clemson's in the prime position with him. You can cite the proximity to his home, the fact that his stepdad played at Clemson, the idea that, he's a one-and-done guy, and there's an opening in the Clemson rotation with Grantham departing after this year. A lot of things you can point to there, go in and help make the program with you being the name versus going to a blue blood program where you're just another standout player. You will stand out alone apparently amongst these other players, all kind of factors and reasons like that being cited for it. We're just going to have to wait and see, however, because I don't have a firm feel at all about what he's going to do, other than what I've heard through the various writings and things of that nature.
I agree with all that. There are some people who believe that the acquisition, I say acquisition being from the just literal translation of it, the acquisition of Brian Bowen from South Carolina, some people believe that puts the Gamecocks in some kind of shape. I know that we were talking about yesterday, Frank being at Spartanburg Day to at least visit with Zion. But at the same time, I don't want to say that ship is completely sailed, but from the standpoint of those who are inside the recruiting staples and, people we talk to, I think that's an open and shut deal.
Well, nothing would surprise me in this case. Nothing would surprise me. You've got some of the best teams in the country coming after you. However, you've got the ramifications of the FBI investigation and of Adidas, which his AAU team is an Adidas-sponsored team. Kansas is a big Adidas-sponsored program. Maybe he doesn't want to go to Kansas because of the tie-in with Adidas and not wanting to put out the picture that, hey, this thing was a behind-the-scenes deal, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Any of them would make sense for one reason or another, Clemson or South Carolina, because they're in-state. And one thing the stepdad did say previously was that, he didn't care where the kid went. He just wanted him to give the in-state schools a good hard look, and he'd be very happy if he were to choose one of the in-state schools.
I want to, at least from the standpoint of this Bowen thing, clarify something, because I put the story is up on our website right now, SportsTalkSC.com, and you can hear all of Frank Martin's comments, including the ones we present you here on the air, but also a little bit more extended. But today's press conference, this was a defense of Brian Bowen. Let's not call it what it is. It was a defense, and there's somebody on Twitter who was trying to say, he was just explaining, not defending. Fix the hyperbole for you. This was a defense. You don't talk for 26 minutes on one recruit, especially with one who comes with the kind of negative attention that he does, if you're not trying to defend it. Now, the defense is justifiable, and from everything that they said and they've done behind the scenes, it sounds like it's defensible. But we won't know until he, number one, sees the floor, and number two, gets in and out of this program without anything that comes about on this program negatively.
And, of course, this is a press conference you wouldn't call 30 years ago because you don't have all the Twitter feed and everything with misinformation on it and attack positions that people take.
And we weren't supposed to hear from Frank rest of this week until the game on Saturday. They were supposed to give us players on Friday, and they changed that up basically overnight, saying, "Oh, by the way, Frank's going to speak at 4:45." He wasn't doing that. He wasn't doing that to trumpet it. He's doing it again. This is a defense mechanism, and that's fine. That's smart media relations. But
sure.
At the same,
I think you're exactly right. That's a good way to put it. I think that. And it's a smart move. Anybody in the PR business would tell you, get out in front of the situation.
It's a defense.
And no matter where Bowen ended up, the school was going to be under a spotlight of scrutiny from basketball people all across the country. And this was the big this was outside of some games. This was the big story in college basketball yesterday. How did South Carolina end up with this big stud out of the state of Indiana?
And
where I can't even maybe South Carolina's had a player from Indiana in his program before. Actually, I guess he's from Michigan, his hometown, but went to school in Indiana. But my point is, South Carolina now is an off-the-radar team this year, very much an on-the-radar team last year. They're an off-the-radar team this year. And here this stud player falls into their lap, the circumstances surrounding it. So no matter where he ended up, had it been South Carolina or Virginia Tech or Washington State, they were going to be scrutinized by it. Smart move, I think, and you accurately pointed this out, to get out in front, explain everything that you've got, be transparent about it, and put the onus on compliance on your end and the NCAA to make sure everything else is handled properly. You've got nothing else to worry about.
I think us calling it a shrewd move is not, people will take that characterization as insulting. I wouldn't say it's insulting, but it doesn't prove that it's not shrewd. There's a reason that he passed by all the schools on the totem pole that he passed by. And again, it's not meant to be insulting, but it's South Carolina. It's not North Carolina. It's not Duke. It's not a blue blood. He's going to a school that doesn't necessarily have the kind of basketball pedigree that some of the other schools that were recruiting him. Heck, even Michigan State was on his list going out of high school. I mean, there's a reason that they didn't go after him either, because they didn't want to face these questions. But Frank Martin has enough confidence in his compliance department and Chance over there and all those guys who have done that. He has his confidence that they can't have anything negative happen to their program as a result of having this guy on campus. And he has basically spun it as a redemption story and a feel-good story and a reach-out story, and all power to him. But I'm sorry if I can't sit here and say it's anything else other than spin until we see the kid on the floor.
What is unique about this situation is South Carolina was able to draw a coach with some cachet to South Carolina with the potential of building what could be a great basketball program. And I don't think many coaches in the country would have had the guts to do this except for Frank Martin.
Well, again, I think you're all pretty much correct with what you're saying there. Yeah, I mean, the fact is this. He's in school. By South Carolina, he is eligible. And I have no reason not to think the NCAA won't clear him at some point in time. They don't have to rush it since he's not playing this year. They don't have to rush it. They can take their time, probably will. But I have, no reason to think that they won't give him his eligibility back so that he can play starting next December. Is when he'll be eligible to play at South Carolina. But I have no doubt that that'll be clear.
There'll still be at least.
I have nothing to base that. I have nothing really to base that on, other than my feeling that they would not have taken him if they did not believe he would be recertified at some point.
They believe that he will be certified, but not without a penalty. That's the one thing that's the big question.
Well, they may make him sit out X number of games
outside of the ones that he's not eligible to participate in because of the transfer rule. So it might not be December. It might be something where he's able to play, and then he has to sit for maybe a period of, again, I'm just making this number up, 4 to 6 games, something like that.
Yeah. Let's go to James and Rock Hill before our next break. James, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
How we doing, guys?
Good.
Good. The thing that's coming to my head, I watched this Bowen kid. I watched some of his highlights in high school. I mean, he's a player, there's no doubt. But the thing that's coming to my head is, Carolina's going through so much trouble, compliances, and I understand the kid had it tough and all that, but I just feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like they're jumping through all these hoops to get 1 year out of this kid. And if you're talking about he might have to sit a couple of games, he might not even get a whole season of it. If he plays like he can, and I've seen, he's one and done. He is gone after he plays 1 year. But one thing I'll say, and then I'll get off the air and listen to you guys. If Zion goes to Clemson and he plays next year, they will match up against each other, and that will be a hell of a matchup. Love you guys' show.
Thank you. Man, I'd love to see that. No doubt. Be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Yeah, just going back on what previous caller mentioned, that would be a heck of a matchup. Unfortunately, depending on when the game is scheduled,
yeah, that's what we were talking about too.
And depending on what happens with any further punishment in this case, game suspensions and all that, Bowen might not be eligible to play.
Right.
Might not be on the bench in terms of being in uniform, because like this year they played December 19th. That is in the second semester, so he would be eligible to play in the second semester. After the first semester is over, officially he can start to play if he doesn't have to sit out any more games. And now typically they've been playing later in December, so if they reschedule it, and you know what, the two coaches should get together and say, hey, for the good of our sport and the state and the good of our fans, let's make sure we get these teams together when these two guys are able to play, assuming that Williamson ends up at Clemson.
Yeah, and again, this, like I said, and just gathering from again, a lot of this you have to kind of read between the lines. They're bracing still for something to come from the NCAA as far as, like you said, a punishment of some sort. So that's why they keep talking about
North Carolina braced.
Well, just saying.
I'm going to bring that up every time somebody says an NCAA ruling, because I don't understand.
No one's trying to sit here and argue for their legitimacy, Pro. I don't think anybody necessarily wants to
I'm not
take the opposing viewpoint.
Right. I'm not only talking about legitimacy, but acceptance by the universities of any punishments they give after they did this.
Point being, we don't know when he's going to be on the floor. Period.
Yeah, it's going to be a kind of a cloud. Here now, what happens, of course, is you have to constantly at press conferences and all that as time moves on. I guess not so much this year, but getting into next year, you got to ask the question, where do things stand in this case? What have you heard from the NCAA?
Well, it's the same kind of thing we went through with.
Expect to hear something.
Same kind of thing we went through with Rockfelder, for obviously different circumstances involving that, but it's a similar kind of deal. And he said, by the way, Felder's on campus and he'll practice along with Bowen, but still won't play this year. So
Felder is going to practice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I thought the original declaration was that he could get back into school, but was not going to be participating with the basketball team. Am I wrong about that?
Apparently in the same type of restriction that Bowen is in. He can practice but not play,
and
not travel.
Let's go ahead and hear the other part of what you had from Frank today.
Yeah, he was talking again more about the compliance department and the people who are at least staffed in there have NCAA experience on the other side of ruling on these kinds of issues, and that could give them a little bit of a leg up in how to deal with this particular case.
I don't want to speak Chance, but his background as a lead investigator, as a person that dealt with a lot of big-time eligibility cases. And campus is doing right and wrong. He was in charge of that for a while. And to have him on our side, he's not going to lead us into problems. On the contrary, he knows where the potholes are at. He knows, the difference between hitting a pothole and getting caught in a sinkhole. And if he didn't feel good about this, Coach Tanner wouldn't have signed up for it. And I wouldn't have signed up for it. That's the kind of faith that we have in him and the way he runs his department. I said this a long time ago. Chance Miller's a star. There's some people you come across that are good at their jobs, and then there's others that are stars at their job. He's a star at his job. He's about kids, but he protects his campus, and that's that's. We're in education, man. That's what it's about, man. It's about helping people. It's about, if someone does something wrong, yeah, of course there's going to be penalties and all that. We get all that. But let's not start judging people on mistakes. Let's not do that, because we need to look in the mirror when we do that stuff.
What's his mindset right now, and how do you move past, all of the stuff that's happened in the last year with him?
Yeah, I wasn't a part of it, so he doesn't have to worry about. And from the information I have, neither was he. So I don't have to sit around and speak to him about the mistakes he's made, because all this is eventually we're all going to find out. But I don't think he's made mistakes. You understand what I'm saying? And so, but we'll talk. It's part of the growing process. We'll talk about everything and help him move forward. You know, the biggest mistake we all make in life, and it's the way kind of life works right now, which is frustrating, is we want to persecute and create opinions on people that are part of something that wasn't right. And then we all dwell on the mistake rather than, okay, man, he made a mistake. There's repercussions in life when you make mistakes, or you're a part of whoever makes a mistake. And you pay your debt to society and move on, man. And, you know, we're trying to, I'm into moving forward. I'm not into going backwards. I'm not into being a neutral. I'm into going forward. And my excitement for him is the joy I see in his face, that he feels that he's a part of a school that's willing to believe in him and stand up for him and fight for him. And I see the joy in his face as soon as I told him that we'd be willing to get on his side on this.
Frank, is he off?
What would you say? You mentioned possible negative attention. What would be your message to those who would think that bringing him on would bring about negative attention?
If we played him and he was ineligible, then we're not doing it for the young man. We're not doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it to try and win games. And at the end of the day, we're trying to recruit high-level players that fit who we are as people here. And we wouldn't sign up. I would hope you guys, being around me now for 6 years, the same way, you know, some people want to form opinions on you know, without knowing me and who I am on the sideline or whatever it may be, would also know that I'm not signing up for people to do things the wrong way. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to have a bad teammate on my team. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing people that make mistakes here that have embarrassed this university under my watch. They've been dealt with. I would hope you guys know that that's how I do my job. And I'm not going to change. That's who I was when I was a JV coach, and no one in here cared about the decisions I made. That's who I am, you know, after going to Final Four 32 years later, whatever it's been. It's who I am. I'm not changing. I'm going to do what's right for this. This university believes in me. That's why I work here. The people that lead this university believe in me. That's why I'm still here. Make sure, you know, it's not like they extended my contract because I went to a Final Four. They extended my contract the year before without going to the NCAA tournament. That's the kind of relationship that we have with the leadership and myself and my family around here.
Okay, Frank Martin, from his meeting with the media earlier today, kind of stating his case on why bringing in Brian Bowen is good for Brian Bowen, is also good for South Carolina, and that everybody is doing the right thing to make sure this is handled the proper way. And that's all you can do. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, he was going to land somewhere. Why not South Carolina then? If you're Frank Martin, you have an assistant coach who had a previous relationship with him. Why not roll the dice and see if you can land one of the country's top available players? That's a huge break for South Carolina if all this background stuff gets settled
and
in
also,
a positive way for them.
Yeah, I was also about to say it. Also mean that Justin Mackey can stay off the practice floor.
Yes.
They got enough people to practice.
That's one thing
right
that
now.
they did say is that now Bowen will be guarded by Justin Minaya, and that is a significant step up in the competition that what Minaya has to deal with in practice with Bowen alongside of him there.
When we come back, we'll have some recruiting for you. We will be joined by Jordan Roper, the other half of our Give and Go combination. We had Go last night in Aaron Lucas. We'll have Give tonight in Jordan Roper. We'll also talk about the wait and see at Clemson regarding the 3 NFL draft eligible defensive linemen who have yet to come forward with their decisions. As time passes on here, guys, there is a growing feeling that the 3, Wilkins, Bryant, Farrell, will return to Clemson for another year. How big would that be for the Clemson football team and for that defense? We'll take that up in the next hour as well as we continue from Raleigh and Columbia.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We are back, Sports Talk, on a basketball Thursday night here in the state of South Carolina. Phil Kornblut up in Raleigh at PNC Arena awaiting the start of the Clemson-NC State game, which is only 2 hours away from tip-off. I love 9 o'clock games on the road. Back in our studios, Will Pelagic, the Professor Tom Hayes. Let's talk some serious hoops right now, guys. How about it?
Sure.
A little give and go? Yes, indeed. We had Aaron Lucas with us last night. That is the go part of Give and Go. We've got the giver tonight, Jordan Roper of Clemson fame. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
We're great. We're great. Thank you for joining us tonight and looking forward to this game at PNC Arena between the Tigers and the Wolfpack. A lot of really good things happening with Clemson basketball. You as a very close observer and insider in that you talk with the coaches and the players, are you at all, now be honest, are you at all surprised that the Tigers have gone this deep into the season with only one defeat?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they are to a certain degree also. I mean, it's a tough schedule and the tough opponents that they face. But like I said at the beginning of the year when we started doing these segments, you know, you build on some positive momentum, especially in college basketball. It builds confidence. And, I mean, that momentum moving forward is a powerful thing. And they're playing really great basketball together.
The together part is something that you cannot overstate about this Clemson basketball team. For that matter, any successful basketball team, unless you just have that superstar that just dominates the ball and scoring, you need several components coming together. And you've got guys who are all having career years in the same season. That's a beautiful thing if you're a coach.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, just speaking with Coach Brownell and just being able to watch these guys, like I said before, I mean, these guys really enjoy playing with each other, and they really like each other. So, I mean, they have a common goal in mind as one team. So it makes things easier in terms of trying to accomplish things as a unit.
What are your impressions about this team they faced tonight? Obviously, they saw them earlier this year. Facing their press is a lot different when you're facing them in their building. Brownell seems to think that this is going to be a different contest than the one that opened up ACC play.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Coach Brownell. It'll definitely be a different contest. I mean, NC State, at Little John, you know, only shot 5 for 22 from the three-point arc. So they're definitely going to make more shots. They'll be comfortable at home. It'll be a big crowd. You know, it's one of the more tough places to play in the ACC, PNC Arena, you know, just with the students involved in the lower bowl. So it'll be a good one tonight, but, I mean, it'll definitely be a different game than last game on NC State's part. Hopefully Clemson shows up and, you know, plays at that same pace that they've been playing over the past few games.
Obviously, Coach Brownell is comfortable, especially with the veterans he have on this team. In fact, you can see him kind of asking for suggestions on the sideline. What are you comfortable with? You can do that when you got veterans. But as we get deeper in the season, Jordan, do you see him sort of trusting some of the younger players just to keep those legs fresh of the veterans down the stretch as they enter toward looking toward the ACC tournament and postseason?
Yeah, I think he'll be looking to do that. I mean, I'm sure he's looking to do that now. I mean, no coach wants to just play 5 or 6 guys and just go the whole season doing that. But I mean, a lot relies on those younger guys to step into their roles and learn quickly and, you know, not make mistakes. I know that was one of the biggest things when I was a freshman and sophomore, is getting in there and defensively, you know, being in the right position and not making mistakes throughout the scout or defensively.
Talking with Jordan Roper here, Give and Go on Sports Talk, the give side of things. Yeah, you mentioned the previous game. Now, Jordan, Clemson's only played 2 other games since beating NC State at Little John 78-62 back on December 30th. So, I mean, you're playing a team that you really just played less than 2 weeks ago. From a player standpoint, is that an advantage or a disadvantage for both teams?
I would say it is a advantage for both teams in terms of, you've played against these guys, you know what to expect. But I think Clemson will have the upper hand psyche-wise just because they've beaten them. They have the confidence moving forward. They're on a 10-game winning streak. And, they're playing good basketball right now. But, of course, NC State's coming off a Duke win. So, they're excited also, and they're looking for revenge. So, I think both teams, gain a little bit of advantage. But, coming off of, just a 2-game stretch where you just played each other, it's quick revenge or it's quick, opportunity to get that early season sweep. So I think both teams will be, excited to play.
Clemson certainly brings something to the table with its upperclassmen guards and being able to attack NC State's press. But how hard is that to simulate, with a 40-minute press type team, especially when it's not something that you yourself run exclusively?
It's definitely tough. But like Dante Grantham, he's also a great ball handler. Gabe DeVoe can get in there. We have a number of guys that are experienced against the press, and they're able to, handle the press and not get rushed and turn over the ball. So hopefully they can keep that going. But it's definitely tough to press throughout a whole game and keep up that same intensity throughout the whole game.
How much time during the season, Jordan, would you, as a player and the coaching staff, self-scout? Just ask, well, we got a turnaround game with NC State. This is what we did. They know we enjoy doing this. They're going to try to take that away. What's our counter? Do you have a lot of discussions about that and practice on the floor of countering any moves that they try to take some of your comfortable plays away from you?
Yes, absolutely. But more so defensively, we look at if they've done anything different in terms of since the last game that we played them, if maybe they put in a new out of bounds play or a new side out of bounds play or just a new late shot clock play or something, anything like that. But the day before you go through walkthrough, you have scout, you watch film, and the day of the game you wake up, you watch the scout, you have walkthrough, you go to the shoot around, and you walk through again, you come back to the hotel, you sleep, you wake up, you walk through again. So you go over it several times where it's beat into your head. And, it's pretty much muscle memory. So, you have a few times, pay attention, lock in, and, really know what guys are doing. So by the time that you get in the game, Coach Brownell and his staff have you so prepared to play that, defensively, that's been our identity for so many years. It's just because they prepare us so well in terms of situations and what the other team's running.
People might be wondering, Corn, what the hell are you doing up in Raleigh for a 9 o'clock tip on a Thursday night? But, being an old ACC fan growing up, I still have great reverence for Tobacco Road basketball. And this is part of it. Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Wake Forest. And so as a player, I wanted to ask you, was it, how did it feel to come up here to play basketball in an area where basketball means so much to the people?
It was awesome, it was just because, you go somewhere where basketball's first instead of second. And, each arena in North Carolina, it's going to be a good crowd. They're going to be into the game. There's going to be times where it's deafeningly loud and you can't hear the guy right next to you or the floor shaking and different things like that. The fans are into it. They've got, the blow up heads and they change the size of the basket depending on the half. So the crowd really gets into it. It's a great production game wise. But it's also just fun just to play in that atmosphere. And then you add on top of how much it matters in ACC basketball. It was a great experience for me. And, it's something that I'll never forget. Going to NC State, and I think it scored 18 points and we got a road win. So road wins are always good. They're always much more fun because, it's just you against the world, it seems, because no one's cheering for you.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll talk to you next week and see if the Tigers have a couple more wins under the belt. We got to get to you maybe Monday night before the Tigers go to Chapel Hill. That'll be a good time to talk to you. So we'll get with you next week once again.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jordan. Jordan Roper, give and go here on Sports Talk. Jordan Roper, Aaron Lucas, and we'll try to get them together as much as possible. But with these split schedules like this, it's sometimes hard to do so. Appreciate his insight. We'll come back with some recruiting, more of your phone calls here on Sports Talk.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Back we are, Sports Talk, on a Thursday night from up in Raleigh, as well as back in the better capital city, which is Columbia. I always like to say when I come to the Tar Heel State, they got nothing on us. Nothing. Okay? We're a much better state.
We got better
sports
beaches.
Talk shows, better sports talk show hosts, better barbecue, better teams. Got nothing on us. At least that's my opinion.
You hear about the guy who wants to build a new Panther Stadium right on the border in his farm, on the border between North and South Carolina? You hear about this?
Better watch yourself, because you know they recently moved the border. They closed the business. So what was it called? About a couple of years ago, they moved the border. So some people who were in North Carolina.
Well, you mean the Catawba River?
Yeah, remember they
like
eased the
Catawba
border up. Yeah, one guy had his business with what is it, the lottery tickets and everything else, and cheap gas in South Carolina. He ended up, they moved him into North Carolina, and he closed it.
It's odd.
Well, why did because of what? Because leaving the state, or
no, he closed it because, see, one of the reasons North Carolina people were crossing into South Carolina, cheaper gas tax.
Yeah.
But once they eased the line and put him in North Carolina, he had to pay the North Carolina gas tax, and that kind of cut into the profit so much that he said, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, but now we have higher gas taxes in our state.
Yeah, but this was 2 years beforehand. He wouldn't have been able to look forward to that.
All right, recruiting coming up in just a moment. Want to remind you to check out foundersfcu.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Also, a visit with Mike Morgan coming up at the bottom of the hour. Morgan on the move here on Sports Talk. Let's jump to Wes, who is in the PD somewhere tonight. Hello, Wes.
Hey, what's up, Bill? That's me.
How are you?
News 13. I had to go cover East Clarendon Hemingway Tuesday night, girls and boys basketball for the TV station. And there's a girl that plays for East Clarendon. She's in 8th grade, 6th book. Her name is Taliesia Cooper. And Dawn Staley was sitting in the stands watching this girl play, and she is phenomenal. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. 8th grade in Turbeville. Turbeville's known for two things: speed traps and the chat and chew. And I guess she's be number 3. So she's really good. I mean, she scored 33 that night. She hung 50 on Lake City, and she's in 8th grade. She's playing varsity basketball.
How does she do it? How does she do it?
Scoring over 30. I don't know. She's scoring over 30 a game. I mean, and Dawn was like just sitting there, just watching her play, and everybody's taking pictures with Staley and stuff. All the kids are out there doing that because, I mean, for Turbeville to have someone like that, I mean, it's one stoplight in that town. I mean, it's not really known for much. And right now, she likes South Carolina. I think she's a Gamecock fan, and I mean, she's already visited up there quite a few times. They've taken her through the locker room and stuff at USC, but she's really good. I mean, she's only going to grow. I mean, I'm assuming she's going to put at least another 2 inches on her. But she's smooth. I mean, she reminds me of Raymond Felton when he played at Lat. I mean, it's just how smooth she is up and down the court. She glides, and if you ever get a chance to, I know. You ever get pulled while you want to see him through there one night and a game going on, go over to the stadium and watch them play?
I want to know more about the Chat and Chew is what I want to know about.
Oh, the Chat and Chew is it's a nice little restaurant on the corner. You can get some nice food there. They taste really good. It's not expensive. Me and Rusty Ray did a story there. It's one of the top 5 places to eat in the Eastern Carolina. So when you get a chance to go through there, just don't feed. Stop in and get some food. It's really, really good. Nice home cooking.
Well, I actually have had the distinct pleasure of being stopped by the Turbeville Police Department before.
Is there a town you haven't been stopped in the state of South Carolina?
There's a lot of people around here.
Yeah, I've been stung a lot in the PD. Turbeville, Cowards. Let me think. Where else?
Lake City.
I mean, you can't help yourself.
Didn't you get one in Aner too?
Yes, Aner's really bad too.
I have gotten one in Aner. Yes, I have gotten one in Aner. Yeah, you got to really watch yourself.
They got them sitting on both ends of the town there. So
Pelzer, West Pelzer is another notorious little stretch of road up there on 418. Hey, thank you for that, Wes. Let us know how things have progressed with this young 8th grader.
All right. Well, you guys have fun, man. Later.
Thank you. We got plenty of time to worry about her, I guess, somewhere down the road. But if she's a point guard and Dawn Staley's got her eye on her, then that's a big positive for her. That's a good lead into the recruiting report for tonight. And we talk about place kicker Patrick Nations of Walhalla, who has picked up a lot of national accolades for performances in various kicking camps. But typical of kickers, he has not yet picked up offers. He is talking to several. He says he hears a lot from USC. They are number one right now with him, he said. Also hearing from Clemson, Georgia Tech, East Carolina, Coastal Carolina. But he said USC told him they really like him. It's just got to come down to the numbers. And that's one thing. If you've got somebody who you think is a great place kicker, man, I mean, you should spend a scholarship on the guy, because that guy is going to win you a lot of football games down the road versus, trusting somebody. Not saying walk-ons can't become very good place kickers. Many of them do, but it seems like it's more of a risk.
All kickers have something in common. They're all head cases, man. They all have a run of positivity. They all have a run of negativity.
What's more important, the kicker hits the winning field goal, or the punter, those rare punters who can flip the field?
Well, first off, you got to get on offense that can get you in field position in order to rely on the kicker. First off, I never like putting it on the kicker at the end of a game. In fact, if there was an ability to put a rule in that said you can't kick in the final 2 minutes of a game or overtime, I'd be in favor of that, because I've been burned on kickers for all the teams that I've rooted for in my entire life. And to be brutally honest, I hate them.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, I mean, you're a Jets fan, so that kind of explains that.
Happened in a particular game that took place with the Gamecocks in Missouri, where a kicker burned the Missouri Tigers too. So
yeah, I remember that. Didn't he kind of clang it off the upright?
He hit it as if he was aiming for it.
Well, it might have been the holder, though, because the holder spun the laces in his foot. That could have been the holder's fault.
It was a 20-yard field goal. He could have put the laces directed toward the devil.
I'm sorry, Will probably doesn't remember those kind of details, since he likely was extremely drunk.
I was
2 hours after
I was
that game.
definitely not drunk.
He was
definitely
laced.
not drunk.
All right. Anyway, back to young Patrick Nations. Clemson has told him that they like him, but they could only take him as a preferred walk-on, most likely. So at this point, he's more inclined to focus on the Gamecocks. Went to a couple of games in Columbia, this season. Likes what they're doing as a team. And he's going to visit the next couple of months USC, Clemson, and Georgia Tech. He has a background in soccer, so he has a very strong leg. He has hit from 63 yards in camp. His career long in a game is 48. He plays receiver and safety, and he punts. So he never comes off the field for the Razorbacks. That's not such a strange thing in your smaller programs, but it is something interesting to see, where a guy never comes off the field. USC offered defensive lineman Ben Smiley III of Chesapeake, Virginia. Some of his other offers include Maryland, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia, Michigan State, Missouri, and Syracuse. Wide receiver Jake Smith of Scottsdale, Arizona, was offered by Clemson. Some other offers for him are Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Arizona, Arizona State, and Cal. Clemson also offered linebacker Dante Starks of Marrero, Louisiana. He also has LSU, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida State, and Georgia on his offer list. And that is the recruiting update for tonight. We recommend that you check it out regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. Speaking of our website, SportsTalkSC.com, our poll question of the week, reaction to Brian McClendon being named the USC offensive coordinator. A, it was a great hire of a promising offensive mind. B, it's a risk because he has no track record. Or C, big mistake, should have hired a proven coordinator. 53% say it's a great hire. 30% say it's a risk. 13% say it's a big mistake. So the majority siding with Muschamp in his decision to stay inside the staff. Muschamp has a press conference tomorrow to talk about new contracts and everything, and perhaps he'll name his 10th assistant coach at that press conference tomorrow. Busy night here on Sports Talk. Talked a lot of basketball. Talked about the newest addition to the USC basketball program. Talked a lot about tonight's game here in Raleigh between Clemson and NC State. Let's talk some more hoops as we welcome into Sports Talk Mike Morgan. Tonight's edition of Morgan on the Move, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, where their mortgage team is more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process, whether buying or refinancing. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to apply today. And by BP Skinner Clothiers, people across the country get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Very best in suits, pants, shirts, shoes, and more, available to you right in Columbia. You can visit their great showroom in the Vista. And no matter where you are, Brent will come to you. Visit bpskinnerclothiers.com to set up an appointment. We welcome Mike into Sports Talk. And you've been a busy little beaver of late. Where were you last night, and where are you heading tomorrow, this weekend?
Last night was in Fayetteville and watched a kid by the name of Tremont Waters, who is a name that most people will get to know very soon. He's a special freshman, really, really special. That kind of flew under the radar. Originally was signed to go to Georgetown, and then when Coach Thompson got fired, the recruiting reopened up for a kid who was very highly touted and wound up landing right in Will Wade's lap at LSU. And they went into Fayetteville and completely dismantled everything Arkansas does, both offensively and defensively. It was one of the more shocking results so far this year in the SEC.
And Saturday, you get the Gamecocks and the Bulldogs.
Yeah, we'll be in Athens, Stegman Coliseum. Georgia, despite the game against Missouri, which of course we all know Missouri's a talented team, Georgia is better. I think Georgia could certainly be a bubble team because a lot of people fits, particularly at home. Everybody knows about Yonte Maton, but they've got some other athletes this year that can pose some problems for an opponent like a South Carolina who, as we know, struggles to score. So I would expect kind of a low-scoring game. It's typically what you have with Mark Fox anyway. You got two coaches that really preach defense, but sometimes struggle offensively.
It's the matchup for the Gamecocks and the Bulldogs. Maton in particular, that is a tough one for South Carolina. They've had their troubles with him really throughout his Georgia career. Just having that guy in the middle who can keep him off the boards has been something they've had a lot of issues with.
Yeah, I mean, look, Maton's probably the player of the year right now in the SEC, and he's been so good for 4 years. He might not be an NBA talent. If you talk to scouts, some wonder if he's kind of caught in positions. He's not big enough to play the 4. He's not quick enough to play the 3. So the classic tweener debate. But in terms of collegiately speaking, he's a beast down low. He's skilled. He plays incredibly smart. It gives a lot of defensive problems. He's just very hard to match up with. And obviously the challenge there very often will be on Chris Silva, and can he avoid foul trouble? The game that I had against Vanderbilt, Silva plays 32 minutes, I believe, commits 1 foul. He was dominating, and the Gamecocks dominated. The game after that, they go to Alabama, and Silva fouls out, and it's not nearly as much of a factor, and Carolina loses. I mean, I hate to oversimplify it, but when you don't have great guard play, a guy like Chris Silva has to be on the floor. It's just not an option. He has to be on the floor for 30 minutes if you're going to win these type of games. And Frank Martin's been preaching that for 3 years, and sometimes Chris Silva listens, and sometimes he just can't help himself.
Mike, how would you assess the risk-reward conundrum that Frank Martin had to go through in bringing now former Louisville player and current Gamecock Brian Bowen on campus?
First off, I felt like if it was within my means, I probably could have broken part of that story a week ago when we met with Frank, and we just started talking about recruiting, and obviously Zion came up, and Frank mentioned, well, he's already got a 5-star coming. And I said, what? He said, yeah, no, we've already got a 5-star committed, ready to go. So obviously that's what he was talking about. For me, it's obvious. You take a chance. This is not whatever transgressions that might have taken place, they did not take place in the recruitment to South Carolina. So you could make the argument, well, there's some baggage there, what have you. But if it's cleared by the NCAA and you can pick up a 5-star kid this late in the game for a program that doesn't get a whole lot of 5-star kids, you do it. I haven't heard anything about the kid personally. It's not trouble with the law, not some of the usual black marks on the resume, sexual assault, things of that nature, which to me would be intolerable. But something like this, he's kind of paid a little bit of penance already. Might have to do some more work there. But if you could pick up a kid like that at this stage of the game, I think that's a major plus for that program.
Yeah, I saw you last night, Mike. I think you had on one of those new custom-made suits. You got a lot of airtime with that one. But that first half, LSU was frightening. I got to say, did anybody warn Will Wade, don't get this good this quickly? They'll expect it every year.
Right. I don't think any of us expected it. And, he might have been playing a little bit of possum with us, but he told us, look, we don't expect to win this game here. We just want to keep it close and make sure these kids that their psyche doesn't get damaged too badly in a place where a lot of teams just kind of get their doors blown off. But what I see compared to what I've been seeing with LSU basketball, which has been a terribly underachieving program for the better part of a decade, they look well organized, well in tune with what it takes to win. And then, of course, again, when you pick up a 5'11", 170-pound point guard that nobody knows how to defend, that's a plus. But I'm going to tell you right now, Will Wade is going to be a star in this league. There's just something about him. You get that sense when you talk to him. There's an expression coaches use at this level that when they really respect another coach, they'll say, he runs great stuff. And that's what they do at LSU. They don't just go out there and try to out-athlete you. They run great stuff. And he is a guy that has injected some enthusiasm into a program that desperately needs it. I think LSU is definitely going to be on its way up for a while.
Let me update a basketball score. USC women on top of Auburn, 37-21, playing that game in Columbia. That's in the second quarter. Mike, I'm up here in Raleigh to watch Clemson at NC State tonight here at PNC Arena. And these are two teams that just played like 10 days ago, more or less. So they obviously will know how to prepare for each other and then what to expect. And, Clemson is they won what, 14? No, they won 10 in a row. Yeah, 10 in a row, and they're high as a projected 4 seed right now. Pretty heady stuff for this Clemson team that was picked to finish, I believe, 14th in the preseason in the ACC, down near the bottom. So definitely, would you say overachieving or just living up to what they should be with the talent that Brad Brownell has on hand?
I would say drastically overachieving. And I don't mean that as a slight on the talent. I just mean that as when you look at that league and what the teams are doing well, projected to do well, what they have. I mean, we're talking about lottery picks. We're talking about all conference performers. Clemson, to me, in a microcosm, is a classic case of the sum is greater than the parts. They have solid players, but they don't have, quote unquote, blue chip guys that can just take over games, or guys that NBA scouts are drooling over. But they play well together, and they're old. By that I mean there's a lot of veteran guys on there. 21 nowadays is old in college basketball. And they play with confidence right now. And Brad Brownell, again, has always been, in my estimation, a very good X's and O's coach. He just hasn't been able to accumulate enough talent to win in that league, but this year he's got it.
Mike, we thank you very much. We'll see you in Athens. That game is a sellout, by the way, if you were trying to buy tickets. You got any extra tickets?
I'm sure we can work something out. Come on down.
I'll be there. Well, I don't need a ticket. I mean, I've got a credential.
Oh, I didn't know you were covering the game. Well,
yeah, I'm coming down.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Well, same here.
I got a microbrewery you guys can check out. I was there earlier this year. You guys would be going to have fun.
I'm sure you've checked out every restaurant in Athens. Thank you, Mike, and we'll be back in a moment.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
And from Raleigh's PNC Arena, as we're still only, an hour and 15 minutes away from tip.
Getting close.
For this game between, Clemson and NC State. Looking forward to it. Another recruiting nugget to pass along, something I just saw, tweeted out by a player. This is a 2018 defensive back, Tayon Palmer of Lawrenceville, Georgia. He's picked up an offer from Clemson. So he's the guy in the 2018 class who remains uncommitted, unsigned. He's got some other big-time offers and already has some official visits set for January. He is scheduled to visit Nebraska next weekend and NC State the weekend after that. At Notre Dame on his offer list as well, Vanderbilt too. And so Clemson jumping on board, which kind of tells me that as the Tigers at this stage of the game or any school, when you're looking to fill a particular position, and you've got some people up on your board and you start handing out other offers, maybe you're thinking you're not going to get some of the people who are higher up on your board, and you're starting to go to some of your B and C group. And maybe that's the case here. We've seen Clemson dish out some offers here in the last week and a half or so to some other DBs because guys like maybe Patrick Surtain, they're not going to acquire him, not going to be able to win the recruiting battle for him, for example. Perhaps the kid out on the West Coast that they offered, same deal. So we'll have to wait and see. But this is another DB offer going out by Clemson, Tayon Palmer from Lawrenceville, Georgia. Pretty obvious the Tigers would like to add one more DB to the class and perhaps an offensive lineman as well. So looking ahead to this game tonight, guys, as we've talked about with Clemson having already beaten NC State soundly in their first meeting, in Clemson, I think rebounding is going to be a key here. I think that NC State beat Clemson on the boards in that first game. It didn't matter because Clemson shot the ball well enough to make up for that. And, you're on the road. Clemson's been playing some real good defense. Defense always travels, as Pro likes to say. If the Tigers can shoot it at a pretty decent clip, say in that 43 to 46% range, and not get beat up too badly on the boards as has happened here in Raleigh before and give up too many second chance opportunities, then I like their chance to win this game tonight and get it to 11 in a row.
Well, the thing about it is, Corn, you can't count on the kind of shooting performance you got against them at home. You have to know that what you're doing against them is going to have to be predicated on your defense. I think that's the big key. Breaking the press is obviously going to be something they need to address, and they have experienced guards to be able to make that happen. And I almost look more at what they did against Duke versus what they did against Clemson the last time out. And again, we know that Duke doesn't play a lick of defense. You score 96 points on a team. They, I think, rank somewhere, 108th in the country in defense as Duke. So that at least is part of the reason why NC State was able to have as much success against the Blue Devils as they had. But I think you got to play good defense, and you have to, as we said before, eventually we're going to see a game where Clemson's minutes, the big grunt of minutes that their big players have been playing, that's going to catch up to them, and they just kind of have to stave off that petrol tank hitting empty as long as they possibly can until they can get some more depth on the defensive side.
Well, in this year so far, the key to Clemson is they have been comfortable closing out games late. This was a bugaboo last year when Corn, it seemed like somebody got open every time Clemson would have a victory within their grasp and knock down a three. This is different this year. The only thing you can worry about is if you play your tough defense, make sure that the guys you want not to have foul trouble are in the basketball game in the last 5 minutes of the game, because Clemson has looked very good closing out games late, and they need those veteran guards in there late to finish them off.
Well, I think part of the reason for that is they're a much better defensive team this year. Remember how many times last year in those close games they blew assignments? Somebody lost a man, and that man hit a big shot. I remember the game against, I think it was Syracuse at Little John, where they lost a guy in the corner. He knocks down the game-winning three. I think there was another game like that. I want to say, was it Louisville? Just trying to remember the last year. This year, they have really shored up the defensive assignments. They're not having those breakdowns. But I think Will's comment is something that is worth noting. They do not have a deep bench, and eventually through this long season that they hope will drag into late March, maybe even April, who knows. You can't go very far with only 6 or 7 guys, especially they've been fortunate to this point because Shelton Mitchell and that knee, the knee has held up to this point, but he is a rickety guy. We all know that. And they just don't have much depth behind the frontline guys right now.
And especially thinking about the front court. I mean, I know that they got back David Scara, but even he has provided limited minutes, at least in the last couple of games. Mark Donnell has done so as well. But, I mean, it stands to reason, not just when it comes to the depth concerns about just playing all these minutes, but you also have to wonder about playing in a road environment. You know the way these games are called. What about foul trouble? What if Elijah Thomas gets in foul trouble? He's been rather fortunate the last couple of games, but, I mean, what if you have to put him on the bench and have to go to Donnell and Scara or even play a little bit smaller with a guy like Amir Sims? These are concerns. Clemson has played stellar through their 14-1 record. And the 10 games that they've won, they're starting to get a lot more credit for wins like they had against Ohio State. Ohio State's playing a lot better now. That's increased their RPI. Beating NC State, who beat Duke, helped increase their RPI. No one's doubting what Clemson's done to this point of the season. There are significant obstacles to turn this group from having a season where they simply overachieve to one that can be special.
Yeah. Including winning at Chapel Hill.
Also.
Well, I hate to go against the grain here and rain on everybody's parade, but I think the Tigers' win streak comes to an end tonight here in Raleigh. This is a team that's coming off a big home win over Duke, so they've got a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. A 9 o'clock home game, I see that as maybe being more to favor the home team versus the visiting team. That's a long time of sitting around in your hotel and things like that, waiting to play this game. And just being here before to see Clemson play NC State, they just have had a hard time with the Wolfpack most times, whether it was Reynolds Coliseum or PNC Arena. Their size, NC State's size, has always been a factor that has worked against Clemson. So I'm going to give the nod to the Wolfpack here, and what should be a pretty tight ball game.
The look-ahead factor for both teams certainly is a big part of it as well, because Clemson gets a home game on Saturday against Miami. They have to play a real quick turnaround contest there. And next up on the slate for NC State, they got to go to top 5 ranked Virginia on Sunday at the JPJ. So that obviously is one that's going to take some significant mental pressure on them. There could be a look-ahead factor on either side tonight.
I may go against Corn on this one. I think NC State may feel a little fat and sassy after beating Duke and maybe sitting around at 9 o'clock. Maybe make some stale. I mean, I'm like Jordan Roper. It's us against the world, and maybe that's what drags Clemson into this game and attack the Wolfpack full bore and take a home win, take a road win out of Raleigh.
It's like I said, you got to get through this 4-game stretch at least 2-2, if not 3-1 at the very least, because especially when you think about the fact you have this game, Miami at North Carolina, home Notre Dame. I think they win this one, but I don't know if they win on Saturday against Miami.
Yet another arena Corn sits in tonight where Wofford has won.
Also.
Because this is true.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. I was going to say that I believe the next 5 games, including this one tonight, Clemson's opponents' combined record, something like 64-15, something crazy like that. So, yeah, this is indeed the stretch of the season that it won't make or break the season for Clemson, but it can certainly define what kind of team Clemson really has looking ahead to the postseason.
It will let us know what we're looking at come March.
That is going to do it from here in Raleigh and from Columbia as well. And we will have coverage for you on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Follow us on Twitter from here in Raleigh at SportsTalkSC. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.